All right, so today is the 7th of October, 2024. My name is Evan Strong. I am the founder of In the Image Clothing Company, a clothing company that is so much more than just a clothing company. We are called In the Image Clothing Company because we are all universally designed in the image of our living God, who is Jesus Christ. And we talk about the skeletal system here. So it's nothing to do with fat content, muscle mass, height, or width, or weight, or anything. It's about the skeletal system and a natural position that the body has, and we work out of it from there. Or we work out of that position doing everything that we do. Yes, so I have had a few prerequisites since before I founded this company, right? And that is to lace the shoes that you're wearing with what is now In the Image Clothing Company's shoelacing technique, including just tying them evenly over toward the inside, right? And all that does is just allow the shoe that you're wearing to fit on your foot like a glove on the hand, right? Just to allow it to do what it does within that design's capability, right? And pairing that with just removing the tags from within the tongues of the shoes up through everything that you wear in entirety, right? Because I've gone over within videos what those tags do to the universal human design, right? We do recognize our slight differences or maybe very major differences in certain cases, like deformities, injuries, anything that's specific to you, right? Amputations. We address those things if and when, but really the body is just about the skeletal system, and we talk about it as it is and as it was when we came into this world, right, and born onto the earth before we got altered through worldly things and man-made things, right? The clothing that we wear is the only thing placed physically directly on us at all times, so it's really the only thing that has the potential to, and does, if imbalanced or unnatural, alter our bodies at all times, right? So that's why we are what we are. We are centered around clothing as far as the way that we gear the ability for our bodies to just do what they do, because it's the only thing that can actually affect them always. I mean, even sleeping, right? So I'm just always. Yes, so we have bold claims that are true, right? Within our own situations, you do have your own individuality and you might be slightly different in certain ways, but really, we shouldn't have to stretch. I don't stretch, okay? Being the founder of In the Image Clothing Company, claiming these things, I don't stretch. I do not. I mean, it's been many months, over 6 for sure. I just say that because that's honest, at least 6 months from this point back. We shouldn't have to stretch. And I've gone into all this, right? I've made a video called Stretching Isn't Necessary. But a big point is just that lacking internal rotation. This is so natural to be there, but is so commonly lacking. A lot of it's because of design within clothing. A lot of it's because of flat things in the modern man-made world that we have, right? And I've done a lot of videos you can go find. I've discussed a lot of these things, but anyway, I also say as well as not having to stretch. I mean, we shouldn't have to, truthfully. We also shouldn't have to work out or exercise to get up to a certain capability level just to like do what we need to do, because our bodies are designed to work, right? Unless, again, our own individuality, very specific cases, but yeah, the body's just designed to work. So yes, what I'm going to show here, I'm now realizing this is like, there's there's wheels across this bar. I knew that, but then I also was like, yeah, it's gonna be fine. We'll make it work. But I'm going to talk about pull-ups, because today I started this new series. This is one of the videos, actually the 4th video in the series, The Truth Behind, okay? And at least the first few videos, what they've been is gym exercises. I did the truth behind the deadlift, the truth behind push versus pull, the truth behind the squat, and now this one here is the truth behind pull-ups, okay? And I've gone into all of it in very great depth. Again, that's what we do here at In the Image Clothing Company, is we speak on universal, undisputed truth, but the body as a foundation. And that's something that you have to know where that is to be able to understand these things as they are, right? I mean, we're just discussing it as it is, but as a society in 2024, we're very out of touch broad spread, as I was for such a long time, right? So the things I'm talking about, I'm not just accusing, but it's truth. And I was also in these patternings and doing these things at one point in my life, right? So yeah, let me try to figure out how this is going to work to hold on to, because it's kind of just uneven is the whole thing. But maybe we'll just use this. That'll be fine. So the point is, like I was discussing, internal rotation is so absolutely natural. It's where the majority of the body's function lies within, is internal rotation. And like, I've just gone over it in very great depth. I did a video one time called "There is a Lot to Internal Rotation." You can go find that, and that'll give you a pretty good understanding of what internal rotation really actually is within the body. And the prerequisites are a must just to allow that to even be possible. Seriously, to even be possible. I know that's bold, but it's truth. It is true. So yeah, because if you're tying your shoes unevenly, this is one that, I mean, this applies to anything and everything to do with the body ever, but within a pull-up, this is something we're going to touch on a lot within what I show here. If you're tying your shoes unevenly, right, then the side you're tying them toward, that entire side is being forced to be in external rotation because of a literal rope on your ankle, right? And I've gone into this in very great depth. I did a video titled "The Right Side of the Body," and I talked about just, you know, a lot of what's going on within the right side of the body, because it's not allowed to get internal, right? Internal rotation, even out of our center line on a vertical gravity globe. That whole side's being pulled by a rope. Really, it's being pushed, but the arch then collapses into external rotation just because of the nature of how that knot reacts on your ankle, right? And this is happening universally to all humans who are tying their shoes in a way that's not evenly over toward the inside, right? And then our lacing technique just allows the arches to naturally be there. Again, it just allows the shoe to fit like a glove to the shoe's capability within its design, right? Depending on the stiffness of the sole and the shape of the inside and things like that. But the reason I kind of brushed through it is because I've done videos on these things specific, so you can go find them within In The Image Clothing Company videos, right? Just look us up on the internet. It's 2024. You can find us, right? So it's just, I mean, you just find us on the internet is what I mean. We do have our official domain, InTheImageClothingCompany.com, but as of today's date, which I said at the beginning, that's still being like created, the website. So you can go there if it's up and running when you're watching this, but if you're watching it like today, the date that I said, then you just can't go there quite yet, right? So, but you'll find us. We have our videos placed on the internet, right? You'll find us. But so the thing with hanging from a bar is, even though you're using the farthest away thing from your feet that you can, being your hands at that point, if I'm holding on to this, my hand is the farthest thing from my feet, right? Like the top of these knuckles, that's as far away as you can get without like extending your fingers. Then it would be your fingernails, right? But that's as far as you can get from your foot. But your shoelaces are affecting this up here, okay? Because in order to get in that natural position that the body just works out of, I made an entire video one time called "The Body Only Has One Position," and I went into it in very great depth, right? The body just has its natural position, and from here it hinges and it pivots and it rotates and it reaches out of its natural neutral position. Posterior tuck, internal rotation, outsides of the feet, good nails on the toes to allow for gripped arches to be there, because that's how an arch actually works within the foot, is like this. It looks just like this, really very similar to how the hand would grip like this, okay? So the nails are very important. They really are, just to allow support for, well, okay, in this video, I mean, the nails are important always, but to mention it, it's especially important within this video. If you're trying to do pull-ups and you don't have fingernails that are going at least to the end of your finger to where the pad is not rolling over the nail, then your natural grip strength is just being stolen from you. You have to have a nail to entirely support the pad of your finger, or else it changes the way that your whole structure traveling up can work, because your fingertips just don't actually have support if those nails are being cut shorter than the ends of them, right? That's what nails are really for. And they have functions, but like that's what they do. They support the flesh and the pad of your finger. So that's huge for this video, for anything with any grip ever. But even if you're not gripping things, it's going to change the way your entire shoulder works, right? Because having nails allows your fingers to be pretty straight. And if you don't have them, you're like slipping away, right? Because the tips of your fingers aren't supported to keep your shoulders natural, and so they'll get altered big time. So that's good. I'm really glad that I mentioned that within this as well. But yeah, so pants need to be just universally, this is not just for doing a pull-up, but within In The Image Clothing Company designs and our clothing, when that becomes available, we will always incorporate clothing sitting here, where I'm going to mention within our designs. The pants need to sit entirely above the hips, right? Just to allow them to open and move and posteriorly tuck into internal rotation. That opening of the hips is actually internal rotation. So the pants need to sit entirely above the hips and very slightly higher in the front than in the rear. Because if we're trying to get posterior with the pelvis, you're not going to fight your waistband. I did an entire video one time called Pants Above the Hips. I think that's what it was called. And I went into that, but so that's where your pants need to sit universally across all humans, because that's what's going to keep your core active, okay? And that's a big thing within pull-ups, actually, is just the pants alone. Same thing. How I was saying, the shoes, if your shoes are being laced in a way where your arches aren't naturally allowed to just activate and open your hips, there we go, there's the correlation. I was like, there's something else I need to say within that, because being on the outsides of your feet, naturally gripped arches, right, the things I discussed, allowing that to happen down there, In The Image Clothing Company shoelacing technique, which is just universally the best way to allow a shoe to fit on the foot the way the foot works, universal human design. That's all it is as far as our technique. It doesn't cause your foot to do anything, it just allows the shoe to sit on it without altering your foot. It's the opposite end, right? We're always trying to get back to natural here at In The Image Clothing Company. That's why I'm always so minimal within my clothing, because the body doesn't need support, it just needs to be stopped. The restriction needs to be stopped, right? And then the body will do its thing because it's designed to do that. So the reason I was saying that, maybe I didn't quite finish it, but when you're hanging on a bar, even though your hand is the farthest thing from your feet, if your shoes are laced, collapsing your arches, look at my openness here, because my pelvis is open and internal, if my feet collapse, if my arches collapse because of the laces within my shoes, it takes my pelvis from this nice ripped arch, posterior tuck, internal rotation between those two, right, within the hip capsule traveling down the legs, just a nice natural open position, internally opened, right? I know that sounds backwards in some cases, but internal rotation is an opening, right? External rotation is almost always a closed position. Open and internal, closed and external, right? Posterior, internal, open. Anterior, external, closed, okay? That's pretty much in every case how it will be, but the body really has so much going on within it. But I've discussed a lot of this within a lot of videos. But yeah, that's pretty much how it is no matter what is happening. Just because the pelvis is in the center, right, of the top and the bottom, it's where you hinge. And so if it's anterior, pretty much everything, shoulders will be external and legs will be external. And then if the pelvis is posterior, then everything else can just be internal and internal, right? It stems at the center of everything, being the pelvis, right? So that's why the pants have to sit where they do. Okay, so yeah, and then, yeah, anyway, so the shoes affect your hands, right? As I just discussed and described, again, just universal truth, that's just what happens. The waistband affects your hands, right? Reaching can't really happen when you're in anterior tilt here, but a posterior tuck, active core, then allows you to elongate into internal rotation, right? Now, like this, like I stand like this a lot. That's how I show. When I said, I did a video one time called how sleeve cuffs affect body mechanics, right? I talked about this position here is actually the exact same as this position here. There's actually no rotations happening up here. You can see that. It's all just within the forearm. The point is, internal opening is an open position, but it's internal, right? So anyway, the point is, okay, we'll get into positions on the bar too once I move over here a little bit. But I love this. I just love how in-depth all these videos keep getting. It's so cool. But yeah, so us mentioning within our designs, within our pants, we'll always incorporate them just sitting where they need to, right? Now with shirts, same thing. Within our designs at In The Image Clothing Company, clothing, like our clothing, the top seams of the shoulders just have to sit behind the shoulders, right? I'll finish saying this and then I'll talk about that, but then the ones at the edges need to be right at the very edges, okay? Because if they're at the edge, then you just can move. If they're farther out, you're not even gonna get up there to do a pull-up, right? I mean, this really could be more like here, right? But then the top seams need to always be behind the shoulders. I did an entire video titled shoulder seams need to sit behind, no, shoulder seams need to be behind the shoulders. I just went into it in very, very, very great depth, right? I've talked about it many times, but they just have to. On universally every single human, the universal human design, it's just what's going to allow your shoulders to be in their only position they actually work in. Otherwise, you're just fighting your clothing, okay? And you'll never win that fight. I, in those cases, could never either win that fight, okay? And I was doing that for years, just unknowingly, and a lot of it was just clothing design, not really my fault, but then also oversized clothing. I also made a video called Why Oversized Clothing is Common, and I went into that, how it's actually the design and the tags placed within clothing, and it's things that are far away from what you're thinking is the problem that are actually causing you to wear oversized clothing. Yeah, I've got into all this, but the point is, internal rotation, like I'm pointing here. I also did a video called the pinky finger affects the entire body, right? And I did a video on the neutral wrist, called it the natural wrist. I did a video on the natural working hand. Just things that are related to this video that you can go find is why I'm mentioning those. But this internal rotation needs to be able to happen coming out from the pinky and a natural neutral wrist, okay? So, yeah, there's so much we can get into it within this. Yeah, I just don't know how deeply thorough to really get within this video, but I guess there's no reason not to necessarily. But yeah, so the clothing needs to be sitting where the body's just going to be able to work and get to the bar in the first place while staying in its natural position. And even the feet, right, even the shoes are prerequisite. It just has to happen because your feet are going to naturally hang kind of in, right? I talk about that where a neutral foot and ankle is actually slightly relaxed inward. Because of the way that arch grips, the foot naturally will go in a little bit when it's relaxed. And I can show that on the bar, as long as you can see my feet. But, so anyway, when you're going to do a pull-up, what you really want to do is, well, just the prerequisites, just have your clothing sit where it needs to, including everything that I mentioned already up until this point in the video within the clothing. But then you just want to emphasize the tuck, right? The active core, keeping that pelvis posterior. Because a lot of times what will happen is people will go to reach for a pull-up, and as they reach up, well, they'll have a tag in the rear of their shirt, and so this position becomes this position, but then to make that position work, you have to compensate to get the bones out of the way of each other. So you'll compensate with your pelvis, but then if you're already within shoes collapsing your arches, you're going to already kind of be like anterior anyway. So you need to stay back here, you know, like internal, and like internal. I don't know, you probably can't see my feet, but my toes are pointing in so much. You just want to stay tucked. And the thing is, like, I don't do pull-ups, right? I mean, I don't do exercises like that to, like, for the sake of working out. The body should just do what it does. And if we're trying to do an exercise that takes like this much like thought behind some kind of position, well, I always say we cannot tell our bodies what to do, right? That's why I don't use the word posture, at least in the sense of like being conscious of trying to stand with good posture. Like if I was trying to think about it, I'm telling my body how to do something, right? We don't want to do that. So I kind of don't like the exercise like this anyway, because if you're having to focus on it, you're almost like forcing your body to do it in the way that you're like focusing for it to do it, rather than just like, if you need to pull yourself up to something, your body should just be in its natural position and you go from there. So that's why, like, I haven't even gone to the bar yet, right? Because I don't even know if I can do a pull-up. If I'm being real, if I'm just being honest, I don't know. I mean, I don't even know if I'm gonna try it for the sake of like the video. I don't care if I could or couldn't. Like, it's not some kind of ego thing, but the point is, again, like, the body just needs to do what it needs to do. But people who are going to be doing pull-ups, because we have our own, you know, if you really want to do that, just please don't do it in a position that's going to deeply ingrain some position your body doesn't actually even work in, because then that carries into your life, and you go around in life like in a position your body doesn't work in because you've been training something that isn't even how your body operates. You know, and that's the thing with these gym exercises, and that's why I started this series of the truth behind, because pull-ups, you don't need to train pull-ups. You don't need to train your body to do something. It just needs to do what you need it to be able to do, right? And a lot of times we're actually damaging it by trying to like exercise or work out, because we're just doing things that the body really doesn't even do. And I say this all the time when I say that, like, there's no kind of limitation in that. It's not like there's something wrong with your body particular because I say it doesn't do something, but like the universal human design, it just has certain things that it does. You know, it's like you picture an animal and it's only in the position that it's in, and it moves just slightly out of that position. You know, it's not gonna do something it doesn't do. Same with the human body. I made many videos on how the human body doesn't actually sit, right? I made one titled "The Human Body Doesn't Sit in Chairs," because it really doesn't, but you can do it, but it's not actually happening because you're doing it in a 90-degree position with where your strength is on your hamstring. You're sitting on something, deactivating your hamstrings, deactivating your core, and you're in external rotation. So you're not actually doing it. You're kind of just like placing your body on a chair and it's like deactivated, right? So within pull-ups, that's why I haven't even gone to the bar yet, because I'm not even going to really try to show exactly how to do a pull-up, because I wouldn't even recommend doing a pull-up. The point is, just keep your body in its position that it was designed in, that we don't get to decide, and then from there we'll just do what we need to. But I just want to discuss what's going on within a pull-up. So here's the thing, is, I mean, yeah, I don't even know, this location's a little bit imbalanced, right? But if you're going to do a pull-up, in order to stay internal, here's the thing, a lot of people, like, people might call them different things, but for this video, I'm gonna call this, with the hands like the palms facing you, I'm gonna call this a chin-up, and I'm gonna call this way, the palms away from you, a pull-up, okay? That's what I've heard, and I think that's pretty broad spread what people would call it. Chin-up and pull-up, okay? The reason why most people, when they are trying to do pull-ups or like a pulling motion to a bar, the reason why this way is usually easier for them, because this is, look at this, external rotation. Internal rotation, external rotation. At its base, right? And again, I made that video, you can go find, there's so much, there is a lot to internal rotation, is what the video was called. So there's so much to it, and I've gone over it in very great depth, but being in the modern world we're in, collapsed arches, external rotation, because of the things we're taking part in with our hands, and because of the world we live in and the clothing, the tags placed in the rear, all the things, most humans are in a constant chronic state until fixed of external rotation anyway. So if you're gonna reach from here, you're gonna grab a bar in a position your body doesn't even operate in, okay? But if you have natural grip within the arches of your feet and everything I said, just a natural neutral stance, the way that the human being works before it's altered through the world. We have so much modern stuff nowadays, so many flat things. You know, I made an entire video on how the body likes radius, and because the hand is naturally round and open, and that's where a lot of your mobility comes from, is your hand, right? It has to stem, everything has to stem from like both ends of everything in a sense, because the body works as a whole. You know, I always say the shoulder is essentially the hand, right? Rounded here, I have motion. If my hand goes flat, I can't get up there. Even though my hand's clear out here and my shoulder's up here, or you know, down here, it'd be like this way, the hand has to stem from somewhere, right? I mean, if my shoulder was completely detached, like muscle-wise, well, my hand couldn't even possibly do anything, even though it's clear out here, because it stems from the shoulder. And same with the foot and ankle, they stem from the hip. They're the same thing. The foot and the ankle pretty much is the hip. The hand and the wrist pretty much is the shoulder. But the shoulder is the scapula, the rotator cuff, the pec, the deltoid, the traps, right? Upper, middle, and lower traps. It's the rhomboids. I mean, the shoulder's all that, plus the tricep. I mean, so the body just works as a whole, meaning if you're in a constant chronic state of external rotation until fixed, and you try to do pull-ups, you're just ingraining a deeper, well, okay, I worded it as chin-ups, right? You're just ingraining a deeper external rotation, and it's like you're falling even farther. We need to get internal, but we don't need to get there necessarily. We just need to get back to our natural, activated, internally rotated, which really is just a neutral position, but there's just so much more internal rotation within the body than external rotation in the way that the body actually works, right? Which is crazy, because that's the rotation that's the most lacking in most people nowadays. Again, including myself until recent, right? So if you are going to do a pull-up, you want to be pulling with your palms away from you, because look at this, internal rotation, right? I mean, at its base, again, there's so much more to it, but you want to be pulling with your palms away from you, because you're still actually in, like I said, there's so much to it, because you're still actually in external rotation versus internal rotation, right? External, internal, but then also external, internal, and then there's even more, like, right? But the point is, yeah, see, that's why I'm not even at the bar. I probably won't even demonstrate a single pull-up. I don't think it's even, I don't even think it's wise to try to show somebody how to do a pull-up in the way that it could be the most correct, because it's a potentially very damaging movement to the body, right? That's why this series is called The Truth Behind. It's not like how to do, it's just the truth behind the motion that's so common to do. Because if you have your palms away from you, now you're closer in some ways to internal rotation, but now you're completely externally rotated up here, right? Your forearms might be like internal versus external, but your whole upper arm is external versus internal, right? And so it's just a weird motion. The point is, if you're going to be like climbing up onto something, your hands are going to be facing away from you. You're not going to do a muscle up. I mean, people can do it, but like it's more of like a momentum motion. If you have your palms toward you and you do like a pull up all the way up, that requires like almost like a swing into it, right? Because you can't really push until your palm is on top of the bar and your shoulder can't go anywhere. So you actually, if you're ever going to just be climbing, which is natural, right? Climbing a tree or climbing up like a rocky area on a mountainside, you're going to be like having your hands in front of you, but they're never going to be like here, right? Because you're going to be climbing it to get it farther down than where it is so that you're going up, just climbing. But a pull-up, you're trying to just kind of get the bar in what people would do within a pull-up to your like chest. And then where do you go? Because then now you've got mechanical blockages and you just stop. There's nowhere else to go. And not only that, but it's taking you anterior, like I was discussing, rather than like just climbing. Like climbing up a ladder, the point also is your center line, right? Everything can work better the closer it is to you, right? You don't want to be like fighting. I'm not like condoning fighting, but like you don't want to be fighting out here. You want to be here, like internal. So if you're climbing a ladder, you're in here. So really, I can show this, because if you were to do a pull-up, one of the most natural positions for a pull-up to be done in would be with your palms really close together, or just your hands, right? Really close, kind of like this, because then you could just like, that's actually pretty natural. Because what that's allowing to do, that's cool, all right, yeah. What that's allowing is for your shoulders, your scapulas to still get out of the way, right? And you're still now pulling toward yourself. My toes, I wasn't paying attention to anything within my body there. I was just kind of pulling up and down the way that my body works now. So I'm guessing my toes were probably pointed in pretty well, because that's really what's allowed to happen when you're close to yourself, right? The farther out you get, where are you gonna pull to? But in the center, you pull to yourself, right? So yeah, no, okay. I mean, still, I don't think that's a very good motion to do unless you're just climbing, you need to get up something. But that's why I was mentioning it in the beginning, because then now you're in here, right? As far as like inside yourself in a sense. But just to like train a pull-up, I still wouldn't even do that if I were you. I mean, don't let me tell you what to do or not to do. But as I always say, I can tell you what your body does do, and I can tell you the things you are doing that your body doesn't do, and that's why you're getting sore and feeling like you need to stretch and stuff, because your body is just telling you like, I don't even do this, and you're trying to get me to, right? And that's just universal truth across all humans like this. Like, there's nowhere to go for the scaps. I mean, they can't go anywhere. These scapulas, right? I mean, like your collarbones as well. Like I did a video on the natural collarbone angle, and it needs to be, it's not needs to be, it naturally would be slightly pointed up. And so once you get in a pull-up, pulling to here, it's like you're putting your collarbone like as far as it goes, and like you're at the very end range of motion when you have the most like peak exertion. So it's just an unnatural movement, Now that might be all I need to touch on really with the pull-up, but I'm glad that I did, because yeah, again, if you don't know where the natural, not an accusation when I say those kind of things, because I didn't for so long, but now that I do, I'm just speaking on universal truth, right? If we don't know at times in our lives, and if you don't know current, where the natural centered, neutrally stacked foundation of your body is on a vertical globe pulling you straight down, right, rather than being out of balance anyway, any direction is what I mean. If you don't know where that natural position is, then you won't really know what's happening within movements like this, and they'll seem appealing because people are going to the gym and doing them. They build entire enclosed, heated and air-conditioned buildings with machines and free weights and things just to do these motions and movements that aren't even something the body actually does. That's truth, right? So yeah, weird stuff, but we're very out of touch, right? As a society, right? I mean, I don't want to be like speaking for myself, but I'm so much less out of touch than I was, is what I mean. Like, that's what I mean. That's how I can describe this in such depth. I didn't sit in a class and read a book, but I know my own personal body and the way that it works. And I don't ever stretch. I mean, that's not an exaggeration at all. And I'm no different in the way that like that could be allowed to happen. Within everybody, that's allowed to happen within your own situation, but you just need to allow your body to work, right? I mean, keep your clothing sitting where it does. And I mean, all the things we've been over in the Image Clothing Company videos, right? I have founded In the Image Clothing Company. We meaning I personally, up until today's date, have made every one of the videos. There's over 100 videos, right around 105 videos, averaging about a half an hour long, like this one, discussing stuff like this in very great depth of universal truths of the skeletal system of the human body. So the point is, you don't need to go to the gym to try to train a movement you're never going to use in your life, like in your daily life is what I mean. Like, because I've talked about this in other videos, but I'll mention it within this one as well. I have a video titled "Running is Damaging to the Body," and I stand by that, and I will always, as long as I live on this earth, stand by that. And I mean, I'll stand by it through the eternities, but like anytime I'm here to be asked about it, yes, I stand by that. Running is damaging to the body. We can run short distances to like catch something or to get away from something, but just running, no matter how light your running stride is, the entirety of your body is jolting every single step. Impact, 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 impact. Every step. And you're training a position that's not how you would stand. Because you can't run like this, because you have to, the way you do run is by getting your weight in front of you and basically catching yourself as you're falling. That's how you run, or else you couldn't do it without like your feet going out from under you, right? So when I talk about running, and then the videos I've made within this series now of the truth behind, and I explain how these very common exercises are actually so very universally unnatural for the human body to do, it's truth. But you have to know where the foundation of the body is, right? I mean, I always say you can try to tell your body what to do all you want, and then you can have fun with your foam roller and your stretching routines, or we can get our bodies back to the way that our living God designed them, and then just have them operate out of the position that He designed them in His image to work. The only way they actually operate, right? Not like pushing through something, saying you're doing it, and then being sore for a week. You're not actually doing it, you're forcing your body, and you're actually damaging your body. And sometimes those damages that happen aren't actually like permanent, but what you're doing is training a patterning that will last throughout, you know, the next X amount of time after you've done those movements. And those patterns don't actually apply to anything in your life. I mean, when in life is a pull-up going to benefit me if even when climbing I'd be here rather than here? I mean, you're training entirely different muscles in entirely different positions doing a pull-up here than any other time you'd actually be pulling yourself up onto something, right? So that's what I've gone over with all these other videos. Like I said, with the running video and then the ones within this series, like it is truth, right? It's universal truth, but you just have to know it. I was wrapping up anyway, but there's also people coming. It'd be fine to keep going, but we'll let them have this playground if this is where they're going. Either way, I'm wrapping this video up anyway. So, like I said, my name is Evan Strong. I am the founder of In the Image Clothing Company. As you can tell within this video, we are so much more than just a clothing company. We speak on universal truths, and that's it, right? We have In the Image Clothing Company podcast, where we just discussed the gospel of Jesus Christ. And then, I think I mentioned it, but we do have, yeah, I think I mentioned everything else at the start, so I won't re-say those things. But check us out anywhere on the internet that you can find In the Image Clothing Company. Let's build this community big and broad, again, just for the only focus of allowing our bodies to do what they were designed by our God, that we don't have control over, no matter what we want to think or believe at any part of our lives, okay? So, thank you.